What if I told you that one of your favorite childhood nursery rhymes was actually about torture, murder, and royal betrayal? Today, we're diving deep into the spine-chilling history behind Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, a seemingly innocent verse that conceals centuries of bloodshed and political intrigue. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells, and pretty maids all in a row. These simple words first appeared in 1744 within Tom Thumb's Pretty Songbook, but their origins stretch back to some of the darkest chapters in British history. Prepare yourself for a journey through time where nursery rhymes become windows into a world of secrets, scandal, and murder. Before we uncover Mary's identity, we need to understand something crucial about nursery rhymes. These weren't just innocent children's songs. During times when most people couldn't read or write, nursery rhymes served as coded messages, secret ways to spread news about political scandals, religious persecution, and royal corruption. Think of them as the social media of their time, but far more dangerous. Getting caught spreading the wrong message could mean imprisonment or worse. So storytellers wrapped their truths in the language of children's games, hiding revolution behind lullabies. Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary is no exception. But here's where it gets complicated. Historians believe this rhyme could be about not one, but two different Marys, both with equally dark stories to tell. Our first suspect is Mary, Queen of Scots, who ruled from 1542 to 1567. Picture this: a Catholic queen trying to maintain power in an increasingly Protestant nation. The very phrase "quite contrary" could refer to her opposition to the religious changes sweeping through Scotland. Let's decode the rhyme line by line. How does your garden grow? This might reference the lush Scottish landscapes under her rule, or perhaps the growth of her political influence. Silver bells could represent the chimes of Catholic cathedrals, a sound that would have irritated Protestant ears. Cockle shells, possibly mocking the ornate decorations on a dress gifted to Mary by the French king, symbols of her Catholic faith that Protestants despised. Pretty maids all in a row, her loyal ladies-in-waiting, for devoted women who accompanied her through the French court and back to Scotland. But here's where it gets darker. After her first husband, Francis II of France, died young, she returned to Scotland and married the charismatic but ambitious Lord Darnley. Their passion quickly turned to hatred as Darnley demanded she surrender her crown to him. Enter David Rizzio, Mary's charming Italian secretary. Rumors spread like wildfire that Rizzio and Mary were having an affair. When Mary became pregnant, whispers suggested Rizzio might be the father. Jealousy consumed Darnley, setting the stage for one of the most brutal murders in Scottish history. On the night of March 9, 1566, the palace of Holyrood House became a scene of unimaginable horror. Lord Darnley, along with 80 conspirators led by Lord Ruthven, burst into Mary's private supper chamber where she was dining with friends, including Rizzio. Picture the terror. Armed men in the candlelit chamber, Mary 6 months pregnant, desperately trying to protect her secretary. But it was useless. They dragged Rizzio into the adjacent room while Mary was held at gunpoint, forced to listen to his screams. What happened next defies belief. These men stabbed David Rizzio 56 times. An act of such brutal overkill that it suggests this wasn't just murder, but a message. Lord Darnley himself delivered one of the fatal blows. They stripped Rizzio's body and threw it down the palace stairs like garbage. But the story doesn't end there. Just 1 year later, Lord Darnley met his own mysterious end in what remains one of history's most puzzling murders. On February 10, 1567, in the early hours of morning, an explosion rocked Edinburgh. The house at Cockle Field, where Darnley was staying, was blown to smithereens. But here's the strange part. When they found Darnley's body in a nearby garden, along with his servant, neither showed any signs of explosion damage. Historian Magnus Magnusson noted evidence of strangulation on Darnley's corpse, suggesting he died before the blast. A chair and rope found near the body's hint at a desperate escape attempt through an upper window. Was the explosion meant to cover up a murder? Suspicion immediately fell on James Hepburn, the Earl of Bothwell. Gunpowder was traced to him, and shoes belonging to his supporters were found at the crime scene. Within days, Pamphlets appeared throughout Edinburgh openly accusing Mary and Bothwell of adultery and murder. What happened next reads like a thriller novel. On April 24, 1567, Bothwell intercepted Mary with 800 men, warning her of danger and offering protection at his castle. It was a trap. At Dunbar Castle, Bothwell allegedly held Mary captive and coerced her into marriage. Just 3 months after her husband's death, was Mary a victim of the patriarchal politics of her time, or a calculating queen who traded her husband's life for a new alliance? The truth remains buried in the shadows of history. But there's another Mary whose story fits this rhyme even more chillingly. Mary I of England, known to history as Bloody Mary. Daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, Mary inherited a Protestant England and set about violently restoring Catholicism. The word contrary perfectly captures Mary's resistance to the Protestant Reformation established by her father and half-brother Edward VI. She was literally contrary to the religious direction of England. How does your garden grow? Takes on new meaning when we consider Mary's desperate desire for children. At 38, she married Philip II of Spain, driven by an urgent need to produce a Catholic heir and secure her dynasty. The anticipation was intense. Private letters described Mary's growing belly and the sensation of a baby's movements. In May 1555, rumors exploded across London that the Queen had given birth. Celebrations erupted, bonfires blazed, church bells rang, people danced in the streets. But it was all a lie. There was no baby. Mary, whether from false pregnancy or wishful thinking, clung to the belief that God would deliver her child only after she had purged England of Protestant heretics. This delusion triggered another wave of brutal executions. Here's where the rhyme becomes truly sinister. What if Mary's garden wasn't about plants or pregnancy, but about a graveyard? Each execution could be seen as fertilizing the earth with blood, helping her twisted garden of Catholic restoration to grow. Let's decode the torture references. Possibly thumbscrews, torture devices that crushed fingers and thumbs, named for their metallic appearance, could represent genital torture devices, tools of unimaginable cruelty used on Protestant prisoners. Pretty maids all in a row. The most chilling interpretation suggests these refer to the Maiden, a guillotine-like execution device, with victims lined up awaiting their turn. Mary's persecution of Protestants was systematic and brutal. Over 5 years, approximately 300 people were burned alive at the stake. The smoke from Smithfield fires became a constant presence in London's sky. Men, women, and even children were consumed by flames for refusing to renounce their Protestant faith. However, there's a problem with the torture device theory. Mary typically favored burning as her method of execution, and there's limited evidence she used the specific torture devices mentioned in the rhyme. But the symbolism remains powerful. A queen whose garden grew through the suffering of others. Mary Tudor embodies contradiction. A woman seeking salvation while sowing terror. A queen desperate for love and legacy, but remembered for cruelty. She wanted to restore her mother's faith and her own legitimacy, but her methods ensured she'd be remembered as one of history's most hated monarchs. So which Mary inspired this haunting nursery rhyme? The evidence points in different directions. Mary, Queen of Scots, lived a life of passion, betrayal, and political intrigue that captivated and scandalized her contemporaries. Her romantic entanglements, the brutal murder of Rizzio, and the mysterious death of Darnley created exactly the kind of scandal that nursery rhymes were designed to preserve and spread. Mary Tudor's systematic persecution of Protestants and her obsessive quest for an heir created a reign of terror that would have horrified and fascinated the public imagination. Her story of a desperate queen whose garden grew through suffering fits the darker interpretations of the rhyme perfectly. Perhaps the truth is that both Marys inspired the rhyme. Their stories, separated by just a few decades, both captured the public imagination in ways that demanded remembrance through coded verse. What makes Mary, Mary, quite contrary, so fascinating isn't just its dark origins, but what it represents about how ordinary people preserved dangerous truths. In an age of censorship and royal authority, a simple children's song became a vessel for historical memory. These rhymes remind us that the past is never really past. It lives on in the words we sing, the stories we tell, and the secrets we pass down through generations. They show us that even the most innocent-seeming traditions can hide profound darkness. The mystery of Mary's identity may never be fully solved, and perhaps that's as it should be. The ambiguity allows the rhyme to capture multiple truths about power, corruption, and the price of ambition in royal courts. What we know for certain is that Mary, quite contrary, preserves the memory of women who lived in extraordinary and terrible times, whose stories of love, betrayal, and violence were too important to forget, even if they had to be hidden in a children's song. The next time you hear this innocent-sounding rhyme, remember, you're not just reciting a nursery song. You're carrying forward the whispered secrets of history, keeping alive the memory of queens whose gardens grew in ways both beautiful and terrible. In the shadows of history, even children's songs can carry the weight of centuries. And sometimes, the most innocent words hide the darkest truths of all.